45 years old. She was actually 44 years old when she was diagnosed with lung cancer. Much the same as my father's. It was almost the same place. But she was diagnosed in November, and by March, she was gone, basically, and passed away. And we had been friends ever since high school. We started out at the same place, at the same high school, at the smoking section, smoking and hanging out together. But her scenario was different than mine because I was able to quit earlier in life, whereas she was still smoking at age 40-something and had this terrible diagnosis. And because we were close friends, I was there with her and her family as she went through the end stages, and right up until the day before she passed away, and seeing that there was hardly anything left of her. And she had a husband that dearly loved her, and she had two children, an 8-year-old and a 16-year-old. They were just heartbroken. They lost their mom and their spouse, and their whole life was changed, basically. And hers was solely due to smoking. She hadn't had any other exposures. So it's cases like that that really keep me doing the things that I do, trying to help people. And I'm always willing, if somebody asks me if they need help, I'm always willing to give them advice and try to reach out to them. I hope that's helpful.
It is very helpful.
You got a question?
I was going to hold questions till the end, but a couple of these I think fit in really well with what Shelley was talking about, so I'll go ahead and look at a couple of these. One is, what's the fastest way to stop smoking? And much like Shelley said, there isn't any one magic, thing. We do know, however, that the chances of quitting increase if someone does a couple of things. One, use some type of approved nicotine replacement therapy. Now, some people will quit, they'll tell you they quit cold turkey, meaning that they just stopped one day, they just had their last cigarette, they never picked up another cigarette, they never tried the patch or the gum or whatever. So if that works for someone, that's wonderful. The majority of people they will experience some cravings. There is such a thing as nicotine withdrawal. And a person may feel nauseated, they may have headaches, they may feel very irritable. What else, Shelley, would you say are symptoms? Is that most of them? So nicotine replacement therapy is basically, it's a smaller dose of nicotine than what a person would get in a cigarette, and it just kind of helps alleviate some of those physical symptoms. The other thing that Shelley mentioned is the changing the habits that you're in. If someone is used to getting up and the first thing they do every morning is light a cigarette, then they've got to find something new to do. They've got to learn to do something else instead of getting up and smoking that cigarette. Or if when they're at work, that's what they do on their break, is they go out and they smoke with their coworkers, then they have to find something new to do instead. So what helps a lot of people is to get some type of what we call quit coaching or quit counseling. Some support from someone who helps you come up with a plan. These are some of the things this is when I see it's going to be hardest, and this is how I'm going to prepare for that. So if you have a plan ahead of time, that just helps, as opposed to you get in a situation and all of a sudden it's like you really want a cigarette and you don't know what to do, right? So nicotine replacement therapy and some type of quit counseling. And I'll mention real quickly, Katie's going to talk about some resources later, so I don't want to say too much, but one resource that's available, it's free, it's available to anyone who lives here in the state of Indiana. It's called the Indiana Tobacco Quit Line, and they do have multiple languages available. So you can call. I have some brochures on this table up near the front that have some information about what they provide and how that works. Another question, though, I think this is an interesting question. Is it a problem with marriage life? I think what they're asking is, can smoking or tobacco use create problems within relationships, which it absolutely can, particularly if, thank you. Marge is very observant. If one person in a relationship uses tobacco and the other person is very concerned about that and says, you need to stop smoking, or you need to stop using that spit tobacco, then it can cause problems in that way. As Shelley said, unfortunately, it's one of those things. It's like anything that we want to try to change as human beings. We all have maybe habits that aren't so great, or there are things that we know we should do that we don't do. I should not have that piece of pie after supper, or I should go run that mile that I really don't want to run. But anything we want to change, we have to be really ready. No one can make us do it. And I think it can, so I think tobacco use can cause problems in relationships in that way, because if one person says, look what you're doing to yourself. I don't want to lose you 10 or 20 years sooner than I might, because you can't give up this habit. But if the other person isn't really ready, they have to get there. So yes, it can cause problems, but the flip side of that is, if you are someone or you know someone who's wanting to quit, one of the best things you can do is tell people. Tell the people who will be supportive of you and get their support. I mentioned I have a cousin who has been talking on Facebook about the fact that she has recently quit smoking. Well, she has all these people, all these Facebook friends saying, yay for you, you can do it, hang in there, keep going. That's pretty powerful, I think. So, someone asked a question about getting mixed messages, I think, maybe from doctors or healthcare providers about, that quitting smoking could actually be harmful. I hear stories like this every now and then, especially when it comes to women who are expecting a baby. And you'll hear a story every now and then about, well, my doctor said that I shouldn't quit smoking because it'll be too stressful, or it'll be too hard on the baby. Now, hopefully there are not too many doctors in this day and age who would actually say that. Sometimes I think people hear what they want to hear, okay? If that's true, the overwhelming evidence is that quitting, it can only help you. It's not going to harm a person to quit smoking. Yes, there may be with some withdrawal symptoms, and yes, it may be stressful. One of the things I tell people is, they'll say, well, that's how I cope with stress. I smoke to cope with stress. Or I put a wad of tobacco in my cheek to cope with stress, because the nicotine does have kind of that effect. Well, what happens if you smoke a pack of cigarettes a day? Think about this for a minute. How many cigarettes are in a pack of cigarettes? 20. So if you smoke 20 cigarettes in a 24-hour period, I don't know how you find time to do much else, really, right? If you sleep, let's say you get 6 hours of sleep, that's more than one cigarette an hour. So anything that you do that often, it's kind of like blinking or breathing, it's just part of who you are. And so then if you're having just about the time you start to feel a little bit of withdrawal, guess what? It's time to light another cigarette. And what happens when you light another cigarette? The withdrawal goes away. Plus, we think that when people breathe in the way, how people breathe when they're smoking a cigarette, they tend to really inhale deeply, and like I do when I go to yoga class. Okay? So there's this perception that this thing is helping you cope with stress, when maybe that's not really what's going on. So, and like I tell the high school students, let's find something to do that's going to help you cope with stress, that's not going to kill you, or put you, give you a debilitating disease 20, 30 years from now. So, all right, we'll come back to some questions. I want to give Katie a chance to talk. And I forgot to mention, Shelley is also an ISU student. She's a senior, right? Getting ready to graduate soon. Legal studies. Katie is a student. She's like the poster child for ISU. She got her bachelor's and master's here, and now she's working on her doctorate in health sciences. She works as a grad assistant with the Women's Resource Center, and for the past year or so, more, seems like, she's been president of Tobacco Free Blue, which is a student organization here on campus. So I've asked Katie to talk a little bit about resources on campus for students who want to quit, and also ways that you can be involved. Because as I said, this is a global issue. It's going to take all of us working together to make it better, right? So, all right.
Well, hello everybody. Like Libby said, my name's Katie, and I am a doctoral student in the health sciences program, and it kind of ties in nicely with all of this because most of my research focuses on tobacco, and specifically with tobacco policy change. So when I met Libby, I was working on my master's, and I had to pick an internship, and I really wanted to do something where I could learn more about policy and how to really make a difference by changing things at an institutional level, right? So I met Libby, and she was telling me about all these different things. I was learning so much about tobacco prevention, cessation, and everything that goes into that. And so we ended up starting Tobacco Free Blue, and it's a student-led organization. We meet once a month, maybe even more in the future. We participate in a lot of different events on campus, but basically our goal is to lead the way in ISU creating a comprehensive tobacco-free policy, as well as advocating for the health, wellness, and well-being of everybody on campus, right? And that includes all students, all faculty, all staff, all visitors, right? Because we really want to make sure that our campus is healthy for everybody who comes, including like at sporting events, anything that's hosted on campus property. So our goal ultimately is to have a tobacco-free campus, because we really feel like that is a positive way to really create a change on our campus and to make sure that, it's really easy, to just have a policy that says no, than having some exceptions and things like that, because I think we can see that with the smoke shacks that we have now, people don't really stay within the smoke shacks. They'll either walk to the smoke shacks while they smoke, or they'll smoke all outside. Part of our events that we do on campus is that we'll partner with like Wellness Bash or Earth Day, and then we'll also conduct a cigarette butt cleanup. So probably like 8 of us went out during the spring for Earth Day, and for 1 hour right before the Earth Day festivities, we picked up I think 2,000 cigarette butts in an hour.
1,700.
1,700? Okay, so pretty close to that. But it was astonishing on how much we picked up in that amount of time. And then the year before that, we filled an entire cheese ball bucket with cigarette butts. It was disgusting. But it smelled really bad. My office stunk from it. But we did a public service to clean up the campus. But it also really demonstrates how much people smoke on campus, but don't use the receptacles or aren't inside the smoke shacks, because those weren't directly inside the smoke shack, they were all outside. So we've been doing a lot of advocacy work around healthy living, policy change. So we've met with President Bradley, we've met with Student Government Association, and we've had discussions about what it would look like to have a tobacco-free campus. And by tobacco-free, we mean all tobacco products. So cigarettes, chewing tobacco, e-cigarettes, all those sorts of things. And there's a huge movement going in that direction. I believe as of January 2017, over 1,700 campuses were 100% smoke-free, so no smoking tobacco products, while over 1,400 were 100% tobacco-free, which is what we're looking towards. And then of those campuses, 1,300 had e-cigarettes included in their policies, so students couldn't use e-cigarettes on their campuses. So ideally for our policy, we would have a comprehensive one which would include smokeless tobacco, e-cigarettes, and regular cigarettes, right?